Hello everyone, how you going? Welcome back to some more Heritage Minutes. Now we always just love checking these ones out, minute movies like I always say, and so we're starting out with, I'm just going to have to say treaty.
Treaty in Cree is Nascomitoin, an oral agreement, and our agreements were always spoken. For George Spence, the core of treaty was Wichihioin, to help one another.
And so we, the commissioners,
He was there for the making of Treaty 9, where the Cree were told,
we will honor this agreement together for as long as the sun shines and the waters flow.
the Cree made their mark because they were assured that the land would be shared, and they would always be able to harvest what they needed. George Spence was my great-grandfather. In his life, he saw many promises of the treaty go unfulfilled.
Treaties were essential to the creation of Canada. First Nations still fight for the agreements to be honored.
Wow, well there is a lot to unpack there, a lot of kind of contextual things that I don't know much about, because even just starting with the entire treaty as an idea and concept. I mean, obviously there is a treaty involved in terms of both the title and what we're seeing here, and what I gather it's kind of a lands treaties for the First Nations people, so that they can, I guess, return to or maintain their way of life from fishing and all these different, I guess, agricultural means. I mean, like I said, there is just so much to unpack, and obviously not all of it even got fulfilled in terms of this treaty was meant to kind of ratify or meant to make it a much better situation than it ended up being. I mean, I must say, it did kind of confuse me when they did this part here. Like, is he meant to be stabbing him for blood? I don't really know. As a look, he just touched him on the hand and then he goes and writes with it. Writes a T or no, plus? Is that what it is? Something plus. I don't really know what is going on there, and it's like I said, it's very, very confusing. Maybe he's going to give a thumbprint or fingerprint because it's not a thumb. But yeah, I'm still very lost within the entire thing. I don't really know where he plays a role. Is that the grandfather? Is that what it was? I think, did it fade? Yeah, it faded from this guy to the grandfather. And so I'm not entirely sure who this guy is and how he's important to the story. I mean, obviously I can see that he somewhat signed it, but he's not the main character, it seems, based on this entire thing. So yeah, a lot of different things going on here. I'm gonna need you guys to let me know what the hell is going on, because I understand it's a treaty, and she seemed to say that it didn't exactly go to plan, and it's still kind of being worked on. Hopefully it's gotten better, because considering it is 1905, I think that's when the entire thing is structured. Is it? Here we go. Yeah, I think it must have been 1905, and so I can only hope that in literally more than 100 years, 17 years, it would have gotten a little bit better. But anyway, now moving on to our second one, we have Jean Nicolet.
Monsieur de Champlain, when I finish paddling through this wilderness and reach China, I shall greet them wearing this.
Monsieur Nicolet, your mission shall be for the honor of the king and the Holy Faith.
16.
In the summer of 1634, Jean Nicolet set off from Quebec to find a trade route that would link Europe and North America with China.
But where is it?
Further, I know the place you are seeking.
For months, Nicolet pushed through the wilderness, searching for the Western Sea.
Goja, Mississippi!
What did he say?
He says, Mississippi, great water.
Mississippi, the sea, China.
Jean Nicolet was wrong. It was Lake Michigan, not the Pacific. But others would follow his dream. Joliet, La Salle, the La Vérendrye's, and they would map most of North America from the Rockies to the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow. Well, I just want to take it back to a bigger version. I guess, is that kind of tracing their entire route there, or I don't really understand. I guess that's obviously Mexico that I'm seeing, but Mexico, does it go that high? No. Okay. Oh, it actually is much more zoomed out than I expected, because that must be Florida over there. And so I guess they started up in the northeast, which would pretty much be on the border of the USA and then Canada now, probably a little bit into Canada. But then they got all the way over here and then went directly south. I don't really understand what's going on. And considering that they were looking for a trade route to China, I don't really understand how this entire L shape really comes into it. They need to go a little bit further to be able to make that. Also, the fact that they said it was Lake Michigan, I need to search that up. Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't think that it was any anything that was going to be over on the left, and so I guess they really didn't get too far before they thought they found the other side. They had a little bit further to go than they probably hoped. Man, that would have taken however long. I think they said 6 months in total, but considering they started up in Quebec, actually I'm fairly sure they said they started in Quebec and then kind of got over to Lake Michigan, went into probably Wyoming and then down all the way to San Antonio, or maybe even further. Yeah, right down in here. And so maybe is that what kind of the border was defined by, this big kind of L shape that they made, but then they just kind of claimed all the west as well? No idea. Either way, we can definitely see that they had a lot further to go if they wanted to go all the way to China. I don't really understand. You just have to really go west the entire way. You might hit Japan before you get there, but I don't know. I feel as though they just weren't really looking in the right spot. Or maybe they just have to flip their scale rule over to the, I don't know, 1,000,000 to 1 instead of the 10,000 to 1, because it's just a little bit off when you're discovering Lake Michigan and you think it's the ocean. I mean, the other thing that was mentioned was the Mississippi River, wasn't it? Here we go. Where's that? Oh, it's not really showing up. I think it's in through here. Is this it? Yeah, so that flows basically from Lake Michigan all the way down to the south, but once again, nowhere near all the way over California, Oregon, and Washington. So I guess even though eventually they did manage to map all of North America, it's, I'm fairly sure what he said, I feel as though they had a lot more than 6 months of a journey to be able to get that done. I mean, I guess to be fair to them, it was 1634, so it's not as though they can just kind of send up a drone and just survey the entire area. No, they had to carry the boat and trek it all the way across the entire of North America, which is not a small place by any stretch of the imagination. And I can only assume that actually creating the maps in the first place just completely changes the ballgame. You know, if I wanted to walk from one side of the USA to the other side, I could do it. It would take a long while, but I could certainly do it. Just follow a map, pull up Google, whatever you want to do it. But when you actually just have to kind of make the maps, be a cartographer and explorer at the same time, making sure that you're not making any mistakes or doing your best at not making any mistakes, so that then you're not just sending people on a wild goose chase later on, or even just yourself, you know, you might get completely lost and just go around in a big circle, kind of like what it seems like they didn't mean to do but did. Like this, why do you travel west for so long, then suddenly just get to here? Well, like I said, I don't know, I guess it wouldn't be Oregon, but it would be not Nevada. What's there? Washington? Is that Washington State, I think, up there? Either way, they just got all the way to there and just went, oh, you know what? Nah, let's just go south. So I'm not even too sure if you'd call this a victory or a failure, because it sounded as though he went out looking for a trade route to China and then completely failed in that regard and just ended up mapping all of North America. I mean, like I said, by no means is that an easy feat, and so I have to give credit where credit is due. That is an incredible skill that people are able to do that. You really just have to give it to these guys, because the skills that they have in terms of sailing and cartography and just all that kind of thing is just incredible, I think. But anyway, moving on to our third one, we had Baldwin and Lafontaine.
For whom do you vote? McCulloch! Laissez-nous passer! Nous avons le droit de voter! Lousy rebel! Governor Sydenham said your lot ain't got no rights to nothing!
Oui, pour les bombes, ça va. Faut passer.
Non, non. Pas de violence!
Tu vas perdre donc! Tout ça n'est qu'une moquerie! Une moquerie, je te dis!
Monsieur le Robert Baldwin, il veut que je me présente dans un comté d'Ontario.
Welcome to Toronto.
Monsieur Baldwin, alors c'est bien vrai, vous m'offrez un de vos comtés ici à Toronto.
Mr. Lafontaine, think of the history we'll make when a French-Canadian runs and wins in York.
And they did make history. Together, Robert Baldwin and Louis Hippolyte Lafontaine would forge the basis of responsible government in Canada.
Oh, well, at least I actually have heard of what responsible government is, and so I just have all the context, or enough context, or even just a little bit more context than I've had for the last two, because like I said, for the first one I had no context, and then the last one I was just going, okay, he's an explorer, but for this one I've actually heard a couple of key words in there, like responsible government. I mean, I have to take it back to, what year was it? It was 1861 or something? 1841, okay, so election day in Quebec in 1841. I can only imagine that these guys were just kind of going through the streets protesting. I guess it's not the most calm protest I've ever seen, but no, I can only assume that the French weren't allowed to vote, or at least they weren't allowed to run, or maybe they were allowed to run but they weren't allowed to vote. I don't really know what's going on in terms of that regard. Let us through, we have the right to vote, and then they just call them rebels, and so why are they calling them rebels? So yeah, I don't really understand. I guess they were still called the Canadas, being the upper Canada and lower Canada at the time, considering what responsible government wasn't even kind of around yet. But then I really have no idea where Mr. Baldwin comes into the entire thing, and he says it's from Robert Baldwin. He wants me to run in Ontario. So I don't know how the connection came about in terms of Baldwin asking him to run in Ontario. I mean, hey, at least judging by what the narrator said at the end, he definitely won in Toronto, I think it was, but then he actually says York, I believe.
Think of the history we'll make when a French Canadian runs and wins in York.
Yeah, runs and wins in York. And so is York in Toronto? Because I have obviously heard of New York, and I've heard of York, I think, in terms of the UK, but I've never heard of a York in North America. Yeah, look, I search up York and York comes up over there, but I don't see any over here. I don't really know, Western Australia, UK, Western Australia, no. None of those actually just coming up. And then, like I said, I have New York here, but I don't know of any York. Nothing's coming up, so I don't really understand that. York, Canada? Does anything come up in that regard? York. Okay, oh, York in Toronto. Okay, well, it wasn't coming up, but there we go, right there. Nothing was coming up originally, but now it's just like slap bang in the middle of Toronto. It is Toronto, basically. So in saying that, I would like to know why they kind of had this brainchild. Why did Baldwin even think that it was a good idea for him to run in York, and what kind of did either of them have to gain from it? I mean, of course, considering there was basically riots, it sounds like a good idea in terms of diversity and in terms of just making history as well, but surely there had to be a reason for him to even kind of have it as a brainchild and suggest it in the first place and choose him of all people. That's certainly what I'd like to know, and really who Baldwin is in this entire equation here. Is he some kind of meh? I just don't know. I know the name, but not the person or who he is. But hey, I guess whoever he is, they certainly just went on to create a responsible government and obviously won, and they did something right to be able to do that. And so yeah, just congrats to both of them, I guess, is kind of in order. But hey, I think I'm a little bit late to the party. But anyway, now moving on to our fourth one, we have Segun A Fire.
Giovanni! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire! It's almost to the road! It's heading for us!
Help me get the animals out of the barn!
Oh, the fire's getting closer!
I'm on the horse!
The house is burning!
We gotta get out to the river! Get up!
Can't leave everything! Careful! Don't fall!
Come on! We have to hurry!
Hurry! There's the river! We're going to make it! I can't swim!
Yes, you can!
Hurry! Hurry!
You must get in!
I can't!
Watch out for sparks!
His hair's on fire!
Keep their hair wet!
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. Wow. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Wait, hang on, one family? I'm fairly sure that he just said that there was thousands of families and only one family made it out. How have I not heard of this? This just sounds like a tragic story. I mean, in terms of just sheer numbers, I can understand because it burned for 150 kilometers, and I guess being a river, everyone's going to be kind of built along that. Just, well, what was it, 1860 something? 1870. So that river is just going to be a major trading route, I can only assume. People getting things up and down the river, as well as just obviously a water supply. And then even in this regard, just a safety blanket just to douse yourself and just keep yourself shielded from the intense heat. I mean, I can only imagine that they would have been very cold as well, just being in a river all night and all day, whatever it may be. But then at the same time, you've got this weird kind of dichotomy where you've got just, if you bring your head above or your face above into the water, you just feel the raging fire. I mean, in saying that, surely just the trees that were directly surrounding them wasn't just burning for all night and all day, like 24 hours. That's a little bit impossible, I feel like. I mean, of course, it's just going to be smoldering, but you know, just like not just raging fire for 24 hours straight. And so considering the fact that heritage minutes are generally very, very precise, everyone always tells me, I wonder how they got the horse or managed with the horse. Was the horse also in the water with them? They also let out a whole bundle of cattle, and so what the hell happened to they? Did they just run away? Did they take them to the water? I really have so many questions surrounding it, considering that there were one family of thousands that survived. Because the narrator did say that it was their resourcefulness that enabled them to survive, and I guess that's certainly true, but surely that they're not like the only 0.1% of the entire population was resourceful enough to just go into water to shield themselves. I mean, I can only assume that some people would have been completely caught out or kind of just boxed in and enclosed and would have just perished within the flames. But at the same time, surely enough people, that if they're all living somewhere along the river, surely someone else would have had the idea to just go into it. So I wonder if any of the other families managed to, I guess, get into the river, but maybe they were starved of oxygen, or maybe the intense heat was just too much for them. I have no idea. I just am bewildered as to how only one family and only a few people had the idea and even managed to execute on the idea of just going to the water supply to shield themselves. I mean, either way, obviously it's just a tragic story, and I'm surprised that I haven't heard about it before. How did he pronounce it?
Fires raged along the Segun A River for more than 150 kilometers.
The Segun A River, okay, I've never heard of it, and now I need to just search it up again. We're just going back to Google Maps. Here we go, just a little bit of a copy-paste job. Where is it going to be? Oh, okay, it's up in there. What's here? That's a hell of a big river, I can see that. I mean, unless even up here, it looks pretty wide in terms of... How big is it going to be? Yeah, it's still 50 meters wide up in there, and that looks like it's the kind of closest part or the skinniest part of the entire thing. So I guess for 150 kilometers, what's that? Oh, geez. Oh, wow, that's massive. Along 150 kilometers, did it take up the entire thing? Wow. I mean, it's certainly nothing in comparison to that's a river. Wow, that's a monster of a river. I didn't even realize that was a river, because look, the Bay of Fundy's over here, and that's a bay, and that makes sense. That's the ocean. But for this to be a river, God, that's huge. How is that even able to be fed? I don't understand where that water's coming from. I guess the Great Lakes, but still, man, I've never known that was a river. But no, I guess just getting back to this entire fire, you know, you can hear them in the background saying just keep their hair wet, their hair's on fire. Even that, like, you actually just close enough to the fire and next to the intense heat enough where your hair is catching on fire. That certainly means that you're in some pretty dire straits, and so that just makes me question the horse and all the cattle even more. But no, that is an incredible story, and hey, I guess just some people have the quick thinking ability and just even the ability, like I said, to execute their plan, or even if it's not a plan, just execute what they're thinking on the spot in a moment's notice, just to be able to just run to the river and just do anything they can. Even if they're saying they can't swim, really, you don't have any other option, because otherwise you're going to end up like the thousands of other people that supposedly just lost their lives. But anyway, in saying that, I reckon I'm going to call it there. So thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to do the YouTube algorithmic things down below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you're watching, then make sure to check out just any of the other heritage minutes that I've done, or even just generally videos that I've done. Also, make sure to check out all the original videos down in the description below, or hey, maybe even just want to consider subscribing so that you don't miss another one of these in the future. But all in all, have a good one and see ya.